Not too long ago, the provincial government of Newfoundland and Labrador embarked on a web renovation project. They wanted to improve a lot of the aspects of their site, including moving to a more user-centric design. Generally, with governments, there's a tendency for them to present their information similarly to the way that their government is organized, which isn't always the way that users are expecting or would like to find their information. So Everidge helped the government develop an overall strategy, including moving to a user-centric design, first and foremost by aiding in the development of personas and scenarios. Now, what are personas and scenarios? Personas are fictitious characters that represent real-world people and their needs. Now, you can imagine as a government, you need to be able to provide your information to everyone in your state or your province, and that can be difficult to try and wrap your head around, who are all these people and what are all the various needs. So personas are very important in being able to reduce down your focus into a finite, smaller group of personas, which you can then use in your design to ensure that the information is brought together in a way that's meaningful to them. It helps to sort of get a greater understanding of the user's goals and what their behaviors are, and ultimately, hopefully, simplify the various design decisions and improve the overall user experience. Now, scenarios are activities carried out by those personas. Now, remember, these are fictitious characters, so these are fictitious actions that they carry out. And when drawing up scenarios, you want to capture any type of emotion or questions that might arise or any frustrations that are encountered by these personas and identify the needs that would help them alleviate that particular frustration. Now, in developing personas and scenarios, there's really three phases to doing this. First of all, you want to narrow down your target segments. For the government, what we discovered very, very early on is that there's about 40% of the traffic to the website, which is actually done by the government employees themselves, and 60% by the public. So this is very important because obviously the government website was a tool by the employees, and we wanted to make sure that it was an effective tool for them as well, because an effective government employee is able to satisfy the needs of the public far better. So after we sort of defined those two primary target segments, we started to get into some qualitative research. That qualitative research really was made up of three different components. We started first with a web questionnaire that we put up on the website, followed that up by emails that went out to the various departments. And we figured that the department should have a pretty good idea of the type of information that the public was looking for from them. And thirdly, we looked at the web logs for the existing website, so we could see where people were going to the site and at what time of year different pieces of information were more important. And the last part of that whole development process is to then take all of this data, analyze it, and then develop the overall personas. So starting off with the web survey, we developed a dynamic web survey. So based upon the response that the user would give to a particular question, the subsequent questions would change. And this allowed us to create different flows of questions for both the employees and the public, as well as getting into some particular questions in certain areas. Now, in both segments, for the public and the government employees, right off the bat, we discovered we were set out to discover, first of all, what were they looking for, and how the government could improve the overall site. Now, if we look at a chart to see what the public was looking at, we see right off the bat that press releases were sort of the big ticket item, followed up by sort of things like job listings, government directories, list of government services, followed up by highway conditions, and then we started to get into sort of smaller items. The employees, somewhat similar, but to a far greater degree, they were after their press releases, They as well wanted a directory and were after jobs, and legislation was a little bit more important to employees than it was the public. Now, when posed the question of how can we improve the site, the public by far wanted the information easier to find. Like 1/3 of the people that came to the site wanted things easier to find. About 1/5 of the people wanted to improve the overall quality of the content themselves, and about 14% wanted improvement in the design. That represents not quite, but almost about 3/4 of the desired improvements. The employees were somewhat similar. We had about 1/4 of them wanted information to be easier to find. We had another 1/4 wanted an improved directory, and about 11% wanted improvement in design, and 14% ensured that the content was current and up to date. So, those are some of the high-level findings. Some other key findings that we came out beyond the fact that there's 40% employee usage and 60% public usage. As I indicated, press releases, the job board, telephone directory received the majority of the traffic. And if you look at those three together, from the public's perspective, they represented about 42% of the traffic. And from the government employee perspective, that represented about 61% of the traffic. About 1/3 overall between both the public and the government employees said they needed to have an easier way to find the information on the site. About another 1/3 also commented that they would like to see the quality of the content improve, so make sure that there is not old information up on the site. When you get into larger sites like this, it's not uncommon to have orphaned content that was set up by one particular department, then through departmental shuffles, things become lost. So, being able to track that type of information and ensure that what is up there is actually correct. There was about 1/3 there. Other areas of improvement that were highlighted were the overall site design. They wanted to see it improved, its actual sort of look and feel improved. They wanted to see a telephone directory, and they wanted a search engine. Those three items for the public represented about 26%, for the government employees about 46%, so fairly significant. So what we did is we took the results of those surveys and we started plotting them out against different personas. The idea here is to ensure that we cover off each one of those attributes against a persona. Now, in some circumstances, you're going to be merging these together. And what we wanted to do is in some way reflect the level of importance from a percentage standpoint across those different personas. Now, the number of personas that you develop are going to be probably unique to your scenario. Now, for the government, we had 10. Now, that's larger than what you would normally have, but it met the needs for Newfoundland's provincial government, particularly when you look at the two primary target markets. We had, because we had a 40-60 split between the employees and the public, we decided to go with 4 government employee personas and 6 public personas. And when you look at it that way, it kind of splits things down a little bit, makes it a little bit easier to manage that large number of personas. The next activity we had was an email survey. As I indicated, we emailed different departmental heads, asking them for the type of information that the public generally calls asking for. And we got that information back, and we incorporated that into the personas. We also had a look at the weblogs, and that was a pretty good indicator as to what was happening. And we actually could delineate between traffic from internal sources versus traffic from external sources. We could tell what areas of the site got more traffic. Not only that, we looked at a historical view from a timeline perspective to see what types of information are more important different times of the year. So, as an example, news releases became very important around November. Information with regards to the House Assembly, March, it seemed to peak. Other things like education peaked in both May and September. And things like student aid peaked around April. So that also gave us a bit of an indication as to different types of information, what was required and when it was required by those users, so we could work those into the personas as well. So we took those additional pieces of information, we added those to personas to come up with a set of 10, as I indicated. Now, in drawing up these personas, we needed to have some way of identifying them. So we did that in a couple of ways. First of all, we gave everybody a name, these personas' names, and we came up with the 10 most popular first names and the 10 most popular last names. We combined them together and we got our 10 names for our users. We also divided up these users fairly 50-50 for male and female to reflect the public demographic. We gave these personas names as well. So, for example, if one of the personas was about a parent, give her the name of a mother, the mother, and then we gave each one of these a photo as well. And the photo turned out to be very important for members of the web team to be able to identify to these users more and more. You want to make these personas real people, or real to these individuals, and so by giving photos and giving names and whatnot, it helps to accomplish that. And then we gave kind of a byline to these users, like what is the first thing that would come out of that user's mouth, or what is the one sentence that could help to identify that particular user. And once we sort of had these users sort of mapped out, then we started to develop profiles, and we would come up with a couple paragraph profile literally telling a story, and we would make up scenarios for these users that touched on all the different attributes that we're covering off on their persona. We also covered off on some sort of bullet point items regards to their background, their attributes, and what their various needs were, and that sort of painted the picture of who these users were. And they became really real to the web team. And then after understanding who these personas were, we put them in different scenarios. And again, the scenarios attributed to the attributes and the type of information they were after, also reflecting some of the feedback we were getting from the survey and to whether or not they were successful in being able to find this information or what they wanted to look after. We generally came up with about 3 different scenarios for each one of them. We found through the distribution of the 10 personas and about 3 scenarios for each, we were able to cover off on the vast majority of the types of information that the government was putting forward. And the end result of this is a fairly concise view of who they're developing the website for. And it's, as you can imagine, it's far easier to look at a series of 10 different personas versus the public in general. And it really helped the web team to structure their information more appropriately to these particular personas. In this post below, you'll see a link to a PDF for these personas, so you can download it and take a look at it. But if you have any other questions about the development or how we came about with the attributes of these personas based upon either the email survey or the web questionnaire or the weblogs, by all means post a comment and I'll be sure to respond to you.